We're going to do question 18. This is from the SAT number 9. So 18 says, the main reason that the author includes the information about speed daters, job candidates, and teachers in lines 78 to 85 is to do something, right? So the main reason for why he's including, right, this mention. So what we do is we go up to 78 through 85, and we're going to look at it first. So 78 through 85 says, some of your coworkers like you. Excuse me, I think it's here. The same, barely better than guessing accuracy, is also found in experiments investigating how well speed daters can assess who wants to date them and who does not, how well job candidates can judge which interviewers were impressed by them and which were not, and even how well teachers can predict their course evaluations. So this is the same, barely than better guessing accuracy, which is referring to back up here, talking about coworkers, right? Basically, that we're not so good at understanding how individual coworkers feel about us, even if we understand how the overall group of the coworkers feels about us. So this is saying that same, barely better than guessing accuracy. We know a little bit, tiny glimmer of insight, but it's barely better than guessing accuracy. And it's basically saying this is also found in when we're talking about speed daters, right? And understanding who wants to date us. We're talking about job candidates, and we're talking about interviewers. And if we're talking about teachers predicting how individual students will perceive them. So in advance, kind of what we could say is that you're mentioning these other situations just to show that this finding applies across different contexts, right? So the findings that apply in the workplace can also apply when you're talking about job interviews, can also apply when you're talking about speed daters, all that, etc. So A says caution against making assumptions about certain individuals' motives. Right? So they're including these in lines to caution against making assumptions about certain individuals' motives. Doesn't really make sense. There's no assumptions. There's no like cautioning that's being given, and it isn't really saying that we shouldn't make assumptions about it. It's just on the surface, it doesn't make sense. That's not the point of it for A. So what we would, for A to be correct would have to be like, hey, just because, based on these findings, because we know that we can't perceive individuals' motives that well, you need to be careful when you make assumptions about what people do, right? You need to be careful about how you perceive, how comfortable you are with the boss or with a coworker before you share some sort of gossip or something with them, because we're not really too good at understanding that. That would be more along the lines of what we have, but we don't see that here. B says, distinguish among certain behaviors observed in 3 different scenarios. So this is also not quite right. Let's understand what B is saying. To distinguish among certain behaviors observed in the 3 different scenarios would be basically when you're talking about speed daters, job candidates, and teachers, let's distinguish between the behaviors that are observed, right? Let's draw distinctions between them. But it doesn't really do that. It's sort of lumping them all together and saying here are other examples where we don't understand how other individuals, particular individuals, feel about us. So B is wrong. C says they indicate certain settings where further study by researchers is needed. So we are talking about certain other settings, and maybe we do need further research. We probably need further research in everything. But for C to be right, the text would have to say something like further study. The text would have to say something like, we have a lot of evidence for how coworkers work. And then this also applies to speed daters, job candidates, and teachers, although we need more evidence to understand the differences, the nuance in each situation. We don't have that for C. All it's doing is making this comparison. D says it offers examples of situations in which a certain finding holds true. This is our correct answer, right? These are examples of situations in which the same finding as we found out about coworkers, the fact that we don't understand how individuals feel about us, also holds true in these situations about speed daters, job candidates, and teachers. So D is going to be our correct answer. One thing I'll point out to you, I don't know exactly I haven't figured out the exact words to describe this, but it's what I call like synonymizing almost. And synonymizing essentially means that it's almost like the SAT doesn't say things directly. It sort of translates, almost like word by word. It translates so you get this like more abstract, general characterization of the idea. So basically, the reason that they're putting the speed daters, the job candidates, and the teachers together is to say, yeah, what we know about coworkers is also true about these other situations. right? But D sort of almost like it bleaches that answer choice of being concrete and makes it very abstract. So now it's saying offers examples of situations in which a certain finding holds true. The certain finding is the finding that we've been talking about this whole test pretty much, but they're going to characterize it as this certain finding. So this is just something to know. It's what I call, it's like synonymizing, because it's almost like they take a thesaurus and they're basically just translating the concrete, vivid details into more abstract language, just to make it a little more difficulty, to add in layers of difficulty. So you can actually use that kind of to your advantage. I know it's very subtle, it's very nuanced, but whenever I see an answer choice like that, it just triggers in my head. I'm like, okay, I'm probably on the right track, because we're in this territory where they're throwing in some BS. And that's going to be D. D is the correct answer for question 18.